18, he was leaving a ranch as a cowboy, and at
Full circle.
39, he was, you know, doing all these wonderful things, and all the years prior to that. So he's really.
That's cool.
Okay.
Okay. So back to college in.
Yeah, well, I finished high school and they gave me I had volunteered for what they call the Army Air Corps Reserve, or United States Air Force, Army Air Corps Reserve. And at the end of high school, I had about 7 days, if I remember right, and I had to report to Montana State College. And I went through a pre-cadet program there.
Mm-hmm.
They gave us 10 hours flying in a Piper Cub. And I was there 6 months, and they sent me to University of Utah for 3 months. And then from there, they sent me down and taught me how to shoot a rifle. And then from there, everything went, I went to military police school in South Pacific and so on. But that was a little interlude that was quite interesting to me because I'd been born and raised on a ranch in Arizona. And I was a kid, I grew up on a horse, and I rode a horse all my life. And like I said, I used to watch aircraft go over, and gee, someday I'm going to do that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I wound up at Montana State. I got the 10 hours in the Cub, and that was just sort of an appetizer. And then from there, I went to active duty, went through basic training, military police school. And things just evolved. I wound up as a chief warrant officer when I went to flight school. They taught me how to fly helicopters. Well, one of the prerequisites to get to flight school, you had to have a fixed wing, an airplane license with a minimum of 200 hours. Well, I had 300 hours and I had a commercial license. So that got me into flight school. But, you know, it was rather comical because flying a helicopter has no relation to flying an airplane.
Mm.
Oh yeah, I bet.
It's a totally different animal. You know, you treat it differently. An airplane, you got to be going forward to make it work. In the helicopter, it'll work in any direction you want to go.
Yeah, I saw that in the video, the square dancing video.
Yeah, you know. So I went through flight school, and they kept me there as an instructor, and that's when I thought everybody was trying to kill me. After about 6 years, and then I volunteered to get out of there. I went to Germany, and volunteered from there. I went to Laos, went to career blossomed from there. And as I say, I met Betty in Vietnam. She was over there on teaching school.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
So you were flying in Vietnam?
Yeah.
Combat helicopter.
Combat helicopter?
It was really stupid. This was 1962, 63, and it's before they had the big build-up. And we'd get up in the morning at 6 o'clock, have breakfast, be briefed by 7, be airborne by 8, fly out in the jungle, pick up troops, fly them over to another spot, land them in the combat zone, fly back, and be on the beach with Betty at 1 o'clock. Now that is no way to fight a war, but it was pretty good.
Yeah.
But it worked out well because I spent half my day with Betty there.
If I wasn't
And
teaching.
for lack of anyone else volunteering, they asked me to be the club officer. So I was in charge of all the booze. We had a little club there, and I had 2 bartenders, and we built an outdoor barbecue. I mean, it was pretty nice. At least my memory tells me it was pretty nice. And we had an outdoor theater there. It was built on steps that went up, but we didn't have a roof on it.
Mm-hmm.
And we had taken corrugated tin, which is tin you put on a roof, and we put it on the ground. We ran 2.5-ton trucks over it to flatten it. Then we put it up on the fence, on the perimeter fence, and then back where we had the stand, we had a camera up there, a 16mm camera. And so we'd all sit out there, and it'd be raining cats and dogs. We'd be on our poncho like that, watching the movie through the rain. And it was interesting. And we had one guy that had a repertoire of off-color jokes. Dirty, clean, bad, good. And in order to get the crowd wound up, we called him the stem winder. He'd get in front of it down there, and he'd start telling jokes. And we'd all be laughing and hoorahing, or the guy be setting the camera up, or getting out too. and someone way up on the top row, he said, "Jesus, the girls are coming." Betty and Billy Lee be walking down to come to the movie, you know. Because they had an open house, and anytime they wanted to come on the base there, the commanding officer says, "The girls are welcome on the base, anytime." So it worked out well.
It did.
But then they started, I guess in '63, they had a 9 o'clock curfew. And they wouldn't let her in the gate unless I went out and escorted her in. And then we had been going together, 3 or 4 months on the trip. I knew her 6 months before I ever thought about getting married to her.
That
And
was good.
I knew all about her. She knew all about me, my marriage, my kids. And my daughter sent me a letter saying, "You better come home and take care of things. It's not going right." So I went home and everything was on a turbo. So we got divorced. I came back overseas and I flying helicopters. And I met Betty. We started seeing each other a little more regular. And I thought, maybe she'd make a pretty good wife. So I cut her out of the crowd, the big crowd of 2.
How many guys were on your camp?
In the company,
500.
in the whole area, there was about 475.
So out of the 475.
I got
So
you.
it sounds
She
like
got
she
you.
chose
So
you.
she-
I got,
I got
Yeah.
Yeah.
On Friday, we just had our 50th wedding anniversary.
Oh wow! Congratulations.
So they said it'd never last.
but it's been quite a ride.
Oh yeah, no kidding.
Still going on. I've always been one that if there's an adventure out there, go for it.
Mhm.
You know, be careful, watch what you're doing, but take advantage of it. You know. Why sit back and say, "Gee, I wish I'd done that," or "Gosh, I could have done that. Maybe I could." Do it. Do it. You might not succeed, but you'll learn a lesson.
Mhm.
And it's always been my philosophy, if it's out there and there's a challenge to it, accept the challenge and go for it.
Yeah.
And you have any questions?
So I was gonna ask you about the Vietnam War. I know it's viewed as very controversial. Did you have any personal views on that, or is it kind of just I'm a soldier?
No, my philosophy at the time, that's when Dien Bien Phu was, it was
Dien Bien Phu was before there was a French.
French, yeah. What was the name of the guy who was there? The
Oh,
French-
Vang Pao?
Vang Pao. No.
He was the general.
The fellow who was the premier at that time.
Ziem. His name was Ziem. I can't
Yeah,
remember
Diem.
his first name.
He was trying to introduce democracy into Vietnam. And of course, being in the military, I had no choice. Well, I did have a choice, as I volunteered for it, because, like I say, it was an interesting country, and I was qualified to do the job that they were asking me to do. So I went there, and my feeling at the time was that we were trying to liberate the country so they become a democracy.
Mm-hmm.
And then it went downhill after that.
Yeah, it's a lot more than just instilling democracy.
Yeah, well, we tried. He was assassinated, and once he was assassinated, then things went bad.
Mm-hmm.
And then I left. I was there for a year, and I left. And Betty and I got married, and I stayed in service for 3 more years and retired. And then it really got what we call hot in Vietnam. It got real
75.
bad.
Mm-hmm.
So then the communists took over, and it's been like that ever since.
Yeah, yeah. So you were talking about how you said try to seize the opportunity to go for adventures.
Mm-hmm.
What's your personal favorite adventure that you ever did?
I guess it was on my going to Nepal. We were cooling our heels in the Bahamas, staying off income tax. And the fellow called me and he says, "Fred," he said, "I want you to come and take a physical or come for an interview." And I said, "Well, where?" He says, "Washington." I said, "Who?" He said, "Well, he gave me the name and said, well." So I got there and they escorted me down to one of the side buildings around the Congress run the White House here. And I walked in and I sat down and he said, I understand you fly helicopters. I said, yeah. He said, you fly airplanes? I said, yeah. He said, well, he said, we're in need of a pilot. And I said, oh, really? I said, well, what do you have? It wasn't that I was really anxious to go. I said, what do you got for me? You know, because if you got what I want, then I will go for you. And so we got to talking, and he mentioned a fellow that I taught how to fly. He said, well, he says, you'll be going over to Nepal to replace this gentleman. He called him by name, and I said, my God. He says, what? I said, I taught him how to fly helicopters. He says, okay, you're hired. It was that quick, my interview. So then I went out, I called Betty. She was teaching secondary school in Georgia.
Teaching in Georgia.
And I called her and I said, guess what? And she said, what? I said, we're going to Nepal. She said, where's that? I said, I don't know. I said, I think it's around India. So she was teaching
I don't remember, probably world history or something like that.
world history or something. So she sent the whole class down to research Nepal and make a report and bring it back and give it to her.
That's smart.
Yes.
So she did. And she listened to all the reports in Nepal. She said, that sounded like a pretty good place to go, you know.
Yeah.
So they sent us airline tickets from Nepal or from the Bahamas, went out to California, and they interviewed me there. And which is just courtesy, I guess, to the company.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, well, you're going to be working for Continental Airlines, a subsidiary of Continental Airlines. And you'll be going over to Laos. And I said, well, when is Betty coming over? And they said, well, she can't go until you finish your probation period. No, we talked about that for a while. I didn't
90
like
days.
it. That's the way it was. And it worked out fine. I met her in Bangkok. Of course, by then I was
It worked out.
totally out of balance. She thought I was smashed. But
So you have a lot of experience flying helicopters. Do you have any? How much experience do you have with traditional aircraft, or like what do you do?
well, to give you an idea, I have about 6,000 hours in regular aircraft,
Mm-hmm.
and I have about 5,000 hours in helicopters.
You told me yesterday 9.
Well, I looked at my book this
Oh.
morning. So I'm pretty well tuned
50.
Mm-hmm.
in both. Now, the helicopters the ones that they're flying today, you started, I'll fly it.
all
But
the buttons.
All the buttons and all the pre-flight and all
Mm-hmm.
the mechanics about getting it
Computers
started,
now.
Yeah.
it was beyond my pay grade. But if you get it started, I'll fly it. Because you fly one helicopter, you fly them all.
Mm-hmm.
It's like driving a car. You know, if it's an automatic transmission. If you put it in gear, you can drive it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But getting it in gear is one thing when it first came out. So that's how it is. The new helicopters, like I say, you get it started, I'll fly it. But I have no idea how to get them going.
Yeah, they look pretty complicated. So these helicopters, I noticed in the square dancing routine, these helicopters weren't really meant to do this. Were you really pushing the limits of these helicopters?
Yes, we
doing
were.
that?
On this particular helicopter, the manual said that if you were at a hover and you want to say this is the tail rotor back here,
Mm-hmm.
in order to hover in place and turn it 360 degrees, you couldn't do it faster than 2 minutes. You had to do it real slow. If you didn't, the manufacturer said you stood the possibility of twisting this off here, putting so much torque on this big large boom here.
Oh yeah.
You crack the boom or the tail rotor would come off. So what we did to compensate for that, we flew through it. We didn't stand at a hover and go around. All our turns were flying turns. So it was like do-si-do. You know.
Mm-hmm.
And the little ones, we could just do everything we wanted. You kick the pedal in and it turned around like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one that looked like a skeleton. I got pictures in there. But yeah, we tried it we knew we were going to the National Air Show, so we thought, well, we'll try. We had a tandem rotor helicopter put out by Vertal. At the time, it was Paseki. And we tried that. It was hilarious because you had a front rotor here and one back here.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get into a turn, if you turn fast enough, this rear end here would pull up like that and set you on your nose. So we decided that wasn't very quick. We didn't do it in that way. But then we went to the National Air Show. It was the first time we did it. And that's where this was at. Igor Sikorsky was up in the stands. And when we came on, all dressed up in the heli, he didn't know we were going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And he had never heard that we were going to do it in his aircraft. But he was in the stands, and when we flew in, and we come in and trail in a big flare like that, and turn and bow to the crowd, bow to each other, and start to dance, you know. They say that he just was jumping up and down, just going bananas, you know. So that's where this picture came from.
Mm.
Really
But we traveled all over the East Coast, from the Mississippi east, with the square dance team.
Wow.
Had a great time.
Yeah.
In your career of flight, did you ever get in any crashes or accidents or anything like that?
No, I was never involved in a crash per se as a pilot. I rode through one. I was as a passenger. And that was.
Was that during flight school?
Pardon?
Was that during, like, while you were an instructor?
No, we were flying a gunnery range in Vietnam, and I was flying along as a safety officer in the tandem rotor aircraft. And the machine gun started messing up, and the guy set it down. And in a helicopter that we were in, if you set it down on real soft soil, when you went to pick it up, you had to pick it right straight up, because you had two landing gear and a nose gear here. Well, if you picked it up and you drug one wheel, it would flip on its side, because you couldn't correct, didn't have enough correction.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm sitting there behind the gunner, and fortunately I had a restraining strap or a safety belt on. And the guy picked it up, and I'm looking out the front, and I said, oh my God, because I could see the aircraft starting to tilt, and I could see what he was doing. And he was trying to kick it out with the pedal, and when he did that, it just rolled up on its side.
Oof.
And it just beat itself to death, you know, it made a lot of noise. When it fell, the gunner, he swung out like that, and his foot hit the ground, and the door came over, and the fuselage hung on his foot. Well, I'm there, the engine's hot, it was shut down, but I looked, and I could see fuel run along the fuselage coming towards me. And I said, dig this guy out, the people are out there, they're trying to get him out. I said, get him out before we blow up, you know. So they got him out all right, and I crawled out on hands and knees and skedaddled, and we sat there waiting for it to blow up, it never blew up.
That's good.
Fortunately.
That's good, yeah.
But that's the only time I was ever in a crash.
Good.
I think we could wrap up right now. Thank you.
Well, thank you
for
so
your
much.
time.
That was a
Well, you're most
very
welcome.
interesting.
I was happy to do
glad
it for you.
to hear about that story. Very interesting.
If anybody wants to take a picture of this, this is his whole military history condensed as far as where he was in, you know, if you're
I can put
interested
that
in
in
that.
the transcription.
I'm just going to put it on the video real quick, see if that fits. You should probably take a picture
Yeah.
and film it. Awesome.
What we'll be doing with this will be the first time